Tom, good to see you. So tell me, how did you come to faith in Christ?
I came to faith in Christ, I would say, probably about 10 years of age. I attended a VBS with a couple of my friends, and at the end they did the altar call, and I got up and submitted my life to the Lord at that time. With that being said, whenever I got home, my family was never active in church. We didn't pray at meals. We didn't even go to church on Easter or Christmas. It was just non-existent. So as you can imagine, trying to live a Christian life posed a lot of problems. And I failed at it miserably. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, I was just immersed in sin. Lived in a household where alcohol was prevalent, something that I seen every day. Didn't really think anything wrong with it because, it was there. It was a way of life. So, needless to say, that's part of the path I took. By the time I was 15, I ran away from home, was homeless for several years of my life, just struggled with many addictions. Like I said, I struggled with several addictions. I wasn't the type of person that you would bring home and introduce as you friend or boyfriend or anything like that. I was extremely belligerent, self-centered, wouldn't listen to anything anybody had to say, didn't care what anybody thought about me, just to be honest with you. I lived for the moment and I lived for me. Eventually, ended up getting married to a saint of a wife, because how she's put up with me is amazing. First several years of our marriage were extremely, extremely rough, just because of the type of person I was. It really didn't matter to me if I was married, if I wasn't. That's the reason I said she was a saint, because she never gave up whatsoever. After about 10, 12 years, as a matter of fact, it was 12 years, we had our first child together. I remember when Alexis was being born, she stopped breathing. And that's probably the first real conversation I'd had with God in a long time. I'd like to say at this point, I completely turned around, devoted myself back to Christ. But I'd be lying. I didn't. I prayed, He gave me what I wanted, and that was it. That's without having any kind of roots in spirituality, I really didn't know any better. I know I pleaded. It was kind of one of those prayers. If you'll do this, if you'll save my baby girl, I'll turn away I'll do whatever you want. Half-hearted, didn't mean a word of it. But it's funny, that's who I turned to. I would say what led me back to Christ would be my wife and children. My wife decided that she wanted to raise her kids in church. And while I didn't agree with it, I didn't stop her. The reason I didn't agree with it is because that wasn't my upbringing, but that was hers. Reluctantly, occasionally I would attend church with them. And I do use the word reluctantly because it's not where I wanted to be. But there for a while, it seemed like every time I turned around, there was something happening at the church that caused me to be here. My kids would be in a play. They would be singing with the choir. There was something. As a matter of fact, I accused our pastor of it being intentional. And then one day I was sitting in church, and I believe it was John 10 is what the sermon was on. And I remember John reading the passage. I can't remember exactly which one it is, but where Jesus says, "My sheep know my voice," and that no man can pluck us from his hands. And that really hit home with me. At that point, I didn't get up to the altar call. I was one of those will not be moved. Wasn't going to happen. But I came back the next Sunday. And then the following Sunday, I came back as well. At that point, there was I met a couple of people that attended church here. And now that I look back, I realize what they was doing was investing in me. Because they'd invite me, call and just check on me. Hey, how you doing? Invite me to Bible study class with them, or just to go hang out. They was really discipling me. And the more time I spent with them and seeing how their life was going, just the type of men they were, not what they had or anything like that, but just the men that they were. Just kind of made me realize that there was something really missing in my life. So I started talking to God again. And the more I talked to him, the more I wanted to talk to him. And then the more he started talking to me. I had one of them tell me that you couldn't walk on water if you didn't get out of the boat. And it was probably that moment that I realized I was lost. All my life it seemed like I had a void in me that I was trying to fill with alcohol, substances, you name it. No matter what it was, it just couldn't feel it. But whenever I recommitted myself to Christ, that void was gone. The more I seeked him, the more he seeked me. Eventually, I was able to start following some pretty important disciplines, reading my Bible, praying all the time, just relentlessly pursuing him. I guess is the best way to describe it. And in doing so, he's just filled me with joy. I mean, I'm at peace. I don't fear anything anymore. I can honestly tell you, in the midst of everything that's going on right now, I've not been shaken.
And that's just amazing. So in what ways did this change impact your family?
Well, it's actually impacted my family pretty big. I came to realize I was not the husband or father that God intended me to be. I would honestly say that I have grown closer to my wife in the past 5 years than I did the first 17, 18 years we was married. I've been able to witness all my children come to Christ, and the joy that it has given me seeing them pursue God is just overwhelming.
If there was a man or a woman watching this video today who's in a similar situation, what would you tell them? What would you say to that man or woman who's maybe walked away from God?
Well, first I tell them that God loves them. And the only thing keeping them from experiencing the joy and the love that I've found is ourselves. Because you're as close to God as you choose to be, regardless of what they're seeking, pursuing. He's the only thing that'll fill that void.
Amen.
And that it's not too late.
Amen. That's great. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it.
Yep.